Welcome to Face, connecting theater makers to the public, brought to you by legacytheaterct.org. I'm here with a very special guest. His name is Matt Knudsen. He's a successful TV and film actor and an award-winning filmmaker, a best-selling author, and a celebrity acting coach. He's the founder of the acclaimed Emmy acting studio in New York City and Connecticut. And his coaching clients are an impressive list, including Tony winners, Emmy Award winners, Gold Globe nominees, Broadway stars, as well as known comedians and musicians. He also works with well-known comedians, musicians, actors from film, TV, and Broadway. As an on-set coach, he has worked on When They See Us, Blue Bloods, Jessica Jones, The Affair, and Orange is the New Black. As a filmmaker, Matt has directed Hide and Seek, which was nominated for Best Screenplay, for Vacation Rental, which was the winner of Best Director, for Pretty People, Inc., and for Sins of the Sun, which was nominated for Best Film. He's the writer of two popular acting books. One is called 10 Steps to Breaking into Acting, and the second is The No BS Guide to the Acting Biz, which was listed in Forbes as one of the top 5 must-read books of today's uncertain market. As a former actor, he has guest starred on dozens of shows and appeared on many films, some of which include, you ready for this list? Gilmore Girls, Criminal Minds, Drake and Josh Go Hollywood, Royal Pains, The Americans, As the World Turns, Guiding Light, Strangers with Candy, Van Wilder, Dragnet, Miracles, Jag, Judging Amy, Family Law, Men Who Stare at Goats, and countless commercials, theater, and voiceovers. He graduated from Vassar College, and we are so pleased to have with us today, Matt Knudsen. Hi, Matt.
Hi, guys. How are you?
Good. Thank you for doing this. So
Thank you for having me.
We see that you're in the in acting studio. Where is this location that you're at? I know you've got a couple studios.
Yeah, so this is the Connecticut location, so Darien, Connecticut, and my other one's in New York City, right in Midtown.
And how are you guys doing with the pandemic? How's it? I'm imagining there's a lot of flexibility going on, as most of us are.
Yeah, so we're actually completely remote right now. We're doing 25 on-camera classes remotely with my 6 different teachers, including myself, and doing about 50 private coachings a week, all over Zoom.
Now, the on-camera classes, that's handy for these times. Are you finding that there's much modification, or is it pretty similar to your in-person classes?
Very similar, and what is different is just you're not sort of having these side conversations, before and after class and chatting each other up between scenes. So, it's very much about the frame of the computer, the camera, and learning how to act within that frame, which is no different than anything we're doing on any TV show or anything we're doing in the studio. So it's actually very effective and helpful.
Oh, that's good. That's great. So take us back to the beginning. What got you into this crazy business, and where did you get your start?
I grew up in Guilford, Connecticut. My mom's still there. My sister and I both, she's a pretty successful actor out in LA. We were a year next to each other in school. And so in Guilford High School, we started kind of tapping into doing theater there. And that's when I started doing community theater, which is what I did at Amarante's Dinner Theater, which is where I met Stephanie Stiefel, where we did Sound of Music in the round in the dinner theater, and I played Friedrich, and it was awesome. And that got me really excited because that was my first professional paid gig, and I would have been probably 15. Wow. So that got me going. I started to feel like I wanted to do this on a bigger level.
I live in Guilford. Stephanie lured me to this area, and so I live in
good
too. So that's wonderful. We have so much in common.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you do your Amarante's gig. You're 15. You decide that this is something you want to continue doing, and then was the next step going on to college, or did you, do theater at GHS at Guilford High School?
Yeah, so I started to get involved in the theater program there, which at the time was ultra competitive. We would compete around the state with the fall dramas and the region and the New Englands and everything. So I did that. I got into it. We would win awards sometimes at these festivals, and then we do the musical, and then we do one acts. And so I started to do a lot of theater, and I was so shy going into that. Even when I met Stephanie, very, very shy. And then this helped develop my confidence, technique on stage. And then I really wanted to do it. And my sister as well. So I went off to college to Vassar, where I wanted to do psychology and theater, kind of a double major thing. Ended up only majoring in theater and did about 30 more plays there. So my entire history as an actor started with doing theater, and I thought I was going to do that forever. And then that transferred to TV and film, when I was 23 and got to New York.
So tell us about that time. You get to New York City, coming from Vassar, and had you gone into the city often growing up, not too far out?
I went to a couple open calls through Backstage while I was at Vassar when I didn't know what I was doing. So I take the train in, stand in a line for 8 hours for an open call for, who knows, like an understudy on a show. But when I got to New York, there were a bunch of us who were theater majors who had moved there, and we created our own work. We got involved in theater ourselves, and then all of us were seeking out agents to monetize that. And when at this time, this is 99, TV was starting to be a bigger thing. There were the Law and Orders and the soap operas. A lot of people went to LA. So, I got with this TV and film agent who, he had theater as well, but the money was in the TV and film. So he started sending me out for that. And I was 23 and looked 16. So I went from doing all these parts in theater, twice my age, experimental theater, to literally playing like the age that you look like and the type that you are. So I started getting really into the TV and film, preferred it more, started working, was asked to go to LA for a few weeks to test it out, stayed for 8 years. And that's how everything shifted, and just started working in that field and really enjoying it.
So just a sidebar, in a nutshell,
Yeah.
and I know we could spend, years talking about this, but the difference between stage acting and film acting, what are the biggest differences in terms of your processes and kind of the gain?
One of the first things I learned going from a theater degree to an on-camera audition room was the art of throwing it away and making everything a lot less precious than you would if you were doing Shakespeare on stage. So and I didn't understand it for a while because I wanted to make everything heard and important, and making sure I hit every word the right way and articulate and enunciate. And they were like, don't do that. Just say it, and let the microphone capture it, let the camera come in. So one of the biggest things I ever talk about is, and I have so many Broadway people who are turning to TV and film, especially now, is that, they're so used to reaching the last row of the theater, and the last person in that row has to see every expression, gesture, everything. And then when you get into this on camera world, like, you think of the camera coming to you, coming into your world and seeing what you're thinking. And it's the muscle of like working out in this frame is a lot obviously different than standing on a stage and trying to reach that guy in the back row. So it's understanding the nuance, and it should always feel like someone's walking by and thinking like you're really having a conversation, not that you're presenting something. We're always working in a box, like this box right here. And when you've been doing it, for 10 months straight through this, people are getting really good at it because everyone's auditioning people for TV shows like this now. So they're doing it over Zoom. It's crazy.
What was one of your favorite projects that where you felt like, oh, I'm really making a mark in my industry?
Making a mark in the industry. My favorite project that I ever did, I did this movie called Dahmer, about Jeffrey Dahmer, with Jeremy Renner, who went on to, he's a big time actor now. The reason I say that movie is because it felt like we were taking something that everyone knows, and the director who wrote it, David Jacobson, created a psychological thriller playing around with the idea of what we already have in mind. And I felt like this is the kind of art and work that I want to be doing. We don't always get to choose that, but I felt like, they're paying us very little. There's good actors involved. There's interesting direction here. I like working on it. I like the material. A lot of the time you're feeling like you're just kind of doing the job. It pays well. It's a cool show to be on, but you don't get to really work the muscles. So this was the first time on camera that I had a lot to do and could work those muscles.
Wow, what a fascinating project. So then at what point did you start getting phone calls for you to come in and start coaching celebrities on set? And what's that process like?
So I started coaching friends of mine, fast forward to me sort of saying with acting, I've done a lot. What do I really want to do with my time? I want to do this and also something else. So I started to coach friends to help them get the jobs I got. So I think I'd been on a dozen TV shows at that point. And then they would tell their friends, and I was, working out of my apartment in Brooklyn. And then sometimes, a mom would reach out and say, can you coach my kid? I advertised them backstage and everything. And I would start doing that and found I was really good at getting through to kids. And then this one kid he got a job on Blue Bloods and wanted, asked that I coach him because I'd already worked with him on the side. And again, that ended up being 4 years of me being on the set of that show, sitting next to Tom Selleck between shots. And, I'm the on-set coach for the kids and making sure they're ready and prepared when the cameras are rolling and 3 cameras are on them. And it's very difficult. It can be very stressful. So I'm always trying to demystify and shatter the nerves.
Wow. Well, I can tell from your aura that you are excellent at that. I mean, already I feel like I've learned so much. So your dozens of television shows, how did you book those gigs when you started to kind of get in the flow of getting calls?
Right.
What were you doing and what were you doing differently, you think, that helped get you those jobs?
Well, after I realized from when I started getting auditions from the agents that I was doing too much and I would need to throw it away, then I got into an on-camera class that it was like a gym where I could practice that. So then I knew I was getting an opportunity, so I wanted to maximize that. So then the next time I got an opportunity, I knew how to bring it way down, keep everything very simple. And the agent's only job is to present you with opportunities for things that you're right for, and hopefully you get one of those slots in the room. So by the time I was lucky enough to get here, I needed to make sure I was covering my side of things, because I never wanted someone to say, you're a musical theater actor, we don't believe you in this world. So I had to take all the theater training and just condense it, not get rid of it or anything, just make sure I wasn't doing more than was necessary for the microscope of the camera. So I figured that out pretty quick, I think. And then, once you get that first job on a TV show, then people trust you more, and, it's on your resume, and you're kind of, a proven commodity, even though it feels like you're always proving yourself in this business. But yeah, and then that just kept happening. And you're piecing together those high paying TV jobs into a living, and just hoping you're always getting the opportunities. It's something, I work with a lot of people now as a coach. A lot of them want more opportunities, and they're lacking. It's just supply and demand.
Yeah.
So there's productions are coming back more and more right now, which is great for them, but they're at the mercy of the agent who can or can't get them in the room.
Right.
So it has to be a combination of things. You have to have technique, you have to be the right type, you have to have an agent who gets you in, then you have to book it. So the audition muscle is important.
Yeah. And you were booking at a time before self-taping was a thing, is that right?
Oh yeah. There was, I've never self-taped for an audition, because I stopped and moved into coaching right when that started. So it used to be you would go on tape with a casting office in New York, and they would mail a VHS copy of the casting tapes to LA, and you would hope it didn't get lost. And then 5 days later, they'd watch your tape. Wow. But by that point, sometimes it was already cast. So, now you tape and it goes right in front of the producer, wherever they are, and they're on their phone looking at it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And our studio has been since I started coaching, we have developed that self-taping ability, the ability to teach it, do it ourselves in the most, the way that you expect Martin Scorsese to look at it. You want it to be so high end because it matters.
Fabulous. So you've got a short list of the type of lights that you want to have, and the
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Fabulous.
It's become, even the camera on the computer has become more important because people are doing auditions like this, and computers aren't built for the high quality. So this webcam's upgraded, and I have another one that's even more. And it's all about looking like you would on set.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you look great.
Thanks.
So does the theatricality and that training come back for things like voiceovers and commercials more so, or no?
I would, yeah, those trends are always changing. So right now, voiceovers are huge because everyone's home and they can record it from home. So what people, when I trained in voiceovers, I would go to this class, you're in the booth and all they're getting is the sound of your voice, obviously. So if you're, if you're in the scene in a voiceover and you're really acting up behind the microphone, they always say do too much, because if you gesture big and smile big, it comes through in your voice. And you would never do that if the camera were rolling on you. But with voiceovers, it's all about dead air, right? So if you're listening to the radio in the car, it needs a kind of energy in the voiceovers when you're listening to those little spots to keep the viewer, the listener, from turning the channel. So you learn this technique of like overdoing it and overselling so you can pull them in. It's a whole other world. It's not a thing we teach at the studio or commercials, because that's, it's sometimes about demographics and not so much about the acting all the time. But again, all those trends just keep changing, which is why, I wrote a book about it so that people could understand, like, the way things were 10 years ago, 5 years ago is not the same as it is today.
It's constantly changing, isn't it? Wow.
Yeah.
So when did filmmaking come into the picture for you?
I think, 5 years after I started coaching, I was always telling frustrated actors who weren't getting enough auditions to make opportunities for themselves. I said, you have the nicest camera around in your hand. The iPhone cameras are incredible in 4K. You could go off and make a film, a scene, something that you're proud of, instead of waiting around. And I said that so much and did so many workshops on it that I said, I have to do this myself to show them. So I documented this process of my first short film, where I wrote it, crowdfunded it, directed it, hired a crew,
Wow.
put it up on Backstage, got 4,000 submissions, what
Wow.
people need to do when they submit. It became this huge lesson. And I
Whoa.
didn't care what happened to it. It happened to go off on a lot of festivals. And that was part of the process of teaching too, saying, look, you get to see it on a big screen in New York City, and and win awards and stuff like that. And just to see how far you can take it. It's not necessarily
Cool. That's incredible. That was
yeah, I just wrote a blog about it on the studio website and said, just so you know, a lot of actors still use black and white headshots. And it was just a lesson.
Wow.
It was like, here's what to do, what not to do in casting and being on set. And so it was great.
I love that angle because, for a million reasons, but one reason, because no matter what happens, if you consider something, success or a fail, in some areas, it's always a teaching point, that's excellent. I love it.
It's also nice to do art where you're not concerned with how it's received. So that was my whole thing. I'm not trying to be a director. I'm doing this because I want to. And if only that was a thing all artists could feel all the time and didn't need anything from it, then confidence is better. Then they probably would work more. I mean, the second you're going to pay your rent with this job, you sort of put this weight of anxiety on you when you walk into a room. So my whole thing is like, there's a world around this where we're still having fun, but competitive and professional about it.
Excellent. Love it.
Yeah.
That's great. So are you going to continue filmmaking? Is this a new love, or?
Well, I've done 4 films now. And I think 2 were dramas, 1 was a horror, 1 was a comedy. So I'm playing with genres. But, right now, it's all about the 2 studios and the Zoom and leveling up and sort of following the change in trends now. So I haven't had time to even think about that, like writing and directing something. It's something I'm approached about and asked about, but those projects take years from start to finish. Like, you follow the festival circuit and everything, and it's a long time. So I also have 2 kids under 5. So 2 studios, 2 kids, I'm good right now.
Busy guy. So then when did the authorship, writing books, when did that begin?
I did one a couple of years after I started coaching, and felt like I had a lot to say about the business of acting and getting an agent and all that, because I've been through it, and that that was entirely my world. And then when a year ago I wanted to write another one, and I did. I wrote one called The No BS Guide to the Acting Biz, and I got a friend of mine, Michael Urie, to write the foreword, who's an amazing actor. And I had a section on COVID and what it's like on set now, and everything, and the stuff I've learned over 20 something years of being in this business constantly shifts. And there wasn't something that was written right now, besides posts or blog posts here and there, that was about it, that you could hold in your hand and read as sort of a manifesto of here's what to think about with Zoom auditions, here's what to think about with your self tapes, here's why you should create your own work and how, and this is what you need going forward. It's the idea is it's for any kind of graduate of a school who's trying to get into TV and film. What would you read? It would be my idea was it would be this.
Wow, that's excellent.
Yeah.
I teach on the
Yeah.
college level, and I'll be sure to read it and reference it. That's great.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
And to that end, if our listeners are interested in how to get a hold of these books or your acting studio, what's the best website to kind of find out all things you?
My studio website is mnactingstudio.com, like Matt Newton Acting Studio. And on that site, there's links to the books, classes, everything, coaching, everything.
Wow. And are you going to return to singing? You've got this amazing instrument.
Again, that's another world that I always think you've got to be taking lessons so consistently. And, Stephanie and I both know the same voice teacher, Paul Elkin in Norwalk over here, who's incredible. But it's something I just haven't devoted time to since college. So I feel out of my element, at least now.
Oh, well, so good to chat with you, Matt. Thank you for joining us.
You too, Keely. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for joining us on Face to Face, connecting theater makers to the public. Thank you to Brad Ross for the themed music. You can follow us on legacytheaterct.org.